$79.99.
Has offered another round of buyouts to workers in areas of search, advertising, research, and engineering. It's not clear how many employees are affected. Stocks ended the day slightly lower on Wall Street, even though an inflation report came in as analysts expected.
On a month-to-month basis, the prices we pay for nearly everything rose 0.1% between April and May, and 2.4% over the past 12 months. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says the increase was driven largely by the rising price of housing and food. While the latest increase in CPI is small, observers on Wall Street say the bill for U.S. tariffs may come due in the coming months.
ABC's Jim Ryan. The Dow was nearly even. Police in Washington state believe they're closing in on Travis Decker, the man accused of suffocating to death his 3 young daughters. Jerry Chester lives in the search zone.
For the most part, there's all kinds of trails and access roads here that if somebody really wanted to hide, they could, and you'd never find them.
Decker's an Army veteran, and officials say he's training in survival skills. Scientists with the World Weather Attribution say that human-caused climate change boosted Iceland and Greenland's temperatures by several degrees during a record-setting heat wave in May. They say the Greenland ice sheet melted faster than usual, and parts of Iceland saw temperatures more than 18 degrees above average. The report comes as President Trump eyes acquiring Greenland. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
5:05 now on this Wednesday afternoon, and with your KVNU News headlines, I'm Will Fiore. Well, a 20-year-old former Utah State University student has been placed on probation for mixing chemicals in his dorm room back in January, resulting in the evacuation of the entire building on 2 occasions. Joshua Peter Yeager apologized earlier this week in court and said he never meant for the incidents to happen. Now, he was sentenced in Logan's 1st District Court after he had previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to recklessly causing a catastrophe, a Class A misdemeanor. Now, according to prosecutors, USU police officers were originally called to a fire alarm at the Mountain View Tower back on January 13th. Now, the source of the alarm was traced to Yeager's room, where he originally claimed that he was boiling water and vinegar to make potatoes. However, officers reported when they entered the room, they discovered a large amount of chemicals, including silver nitrate and potassium carbonate. They also found various machinery, tools, and large quantities of batteries. Now, emergency crews responded to another fire alarm at the same dorm just a couple days later. As they entered the first floor, Yeager had met them and admitted to setting off the alarm again. Now, overall, the incidents prompted a mass evacuation of students and required decontamination efforts estimated between $10,000 to $20,000, not including labor costs. Now, during sentencing this week, defense attorney Tony Baird had said that Yeager was merely conducting experiments for class because of his interest in science. He explained how his client was forthcoming with law enforcement and never nefarious. Judge Spencer Walsh said that Yeager still had made a reckless decision which could have injured innocent people. Now, he ordered the defendant to serve 2 days in jail with credit for 2 days previously served, and followed by 2 years of probation. Judge Walsh also prohibited Yeager from possessing any dangerous chemicals and to stay away from USU until school officials determine whether or not to readmit him. Well, a Utah police officer who survived an ambush of a suspect after an argument with his girlfriend has died after a battle with brain cancer. Now, on a social media post, officials with the Kaysville Police Department noted that Sergeant Jared Jensen had passed away. Department officials wrote that Sergeant Jensen had served the department and community with unwavering dedication, integrity, and honor. They also noted that his contributions and character had left a lasting impact on all who had had the privilege of working alongside him. And a Utah County therapist was arrested on Monday after allegedly grooming one of his clients, leading her to believe that he would kill himself if she were to report him. Now, Mapleton police said that the 26-year-old woman notified dispatchers that her former therapist, 56-year-old Kevin White, had been grooming her during years of therapy. Now, the woman alleged that White would have her stand up and turn around so that he could compliment her beauty. She added that he also encouraged her to show him her self-harm scars on different areas of her body so that he could kiss them as a way to help her develop body acceptance. Now, according to arrest documents, White would also hold her hand as she cried and place his hands on her chest to help her breathe. Now, the woman stated that she initially saw White as a father figure. The two reportedly had visited hotels together across Utah County. Now, arrest documents allege that White had been self-harming throughout the entire relationship and would send the woman images of his wounds. White would also reportedly threaten suicide numerous times, and the woman told police that this caused her to fear that White would harm himself if she ever altered their relationship. Well, it's been another hot one this afternoon as we have had some isolated thunderstorms through the area, and that's going to continue overnight tonight as temperatures will drop into the high 50s tonight with mostly clear skies. Sunny skies coming again tomorrow with temperatures around 88 for Thursday, and then back into the low 90s possible for Friday and into Father's Day weekend. And Napa Auto Parts has everything you need to be prepared for hotter weather. You can get a Napa Legend or a Napa AAA battery. Plus, also, they have fuel treatments from Stanadyne, Howes, Seafoam, just for $8.49 a can. And plus, also mention this ad, and you can get premium 15W40 diesel oil for $11.99 a gallon. That's at any of the 5 locally owned and operated Napa Auto Parts stores from Preston to Providence. And I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News headlines.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Fatigue, headaches, weight gain, hair loss, insomnia, anxiety, intestinal issues, joint pain. Do you suffer from consistent symptoms like these, and no matter how many doctors you see, things still don't improve? Whether you have a thyroid problem, an autoimmune issue, or chronic symptoms, we can help. We do complex medical testing and blood work to find the mechanisms driving your symptoms. And then we create a plan to improve each one while we teach you the tools to stay on top of your health. We've been helping patients just like you for almost 14 years now. We see patients from all over the world, and we have an office in St. George, Logan, Salt Lake, Farmington, and Springville. You aren't crazy, you aren't lazy. It's not just because you're getting older, and these symptoms are not normal. No matter what symptoms you have, you shouldn't feel this way, and we can help. Don't accept Band-Aid answers.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. As I visit with people on a regular basis, I see many things we can help with. Recent falls, balance training, knee, shoulder, and hip surgeries, memory loss, housekeeping, help with medications, and that's not all. We at Primrose offer the best care in any situation. A great example of this is our preventative care program. While working with your doctor and using our personal approach, we can help prevent many of these situations. For more explanation, visit primrosecare.com or call me at 787-1369. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., we'll look at the latest with these protests, these riots that started in L.A. Are they catching on in other cities across America? Plus, Clay.
We'll break down the absolute latest on the big, beautiful bill as we continue to track it as it winds its way towards passage. All that and more Thursday edition, Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
When some loud bragger tries to put me down and says this school is great, I tell him right away, now what's the matter, bud? it's number one in the state.
Hey, hey, take it away. It's
So be true to your school. Just like you will to your girl.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Governor Cox made some waves yesterday, a couple of different times in his monthly news conference. We've got the highlights here for you. It was a broad-ranging monthly news conference where the governor opened up talking about some specific things he was working on. He's very excited about the nuclear energy agreement that was announced a couple of weeks ago and where that goes from here. The timeline ended up being a lot sooner than the governor's office or the legislature thought on when the company thinks. Now, they might be overpromising. There's a risk of that. But when the company announced that they thought they could actually have a reactor tested up and running for ongoing tests, but producing electricity during those ongoing tests here in Utah within 5 years, the governor said yesterday no one was prepared for that. We were thinking 10, 15 at the earliest. And when they said 5, we thought, well, we better get serious about this. So we talked a little bit about that. That was exciting news. We spent some time on here on the show already. This news conference yesterday then took several different turns on national fronts and headlines to some issues here in Utah. And then the governor just kind of opined a bit off the cuff about this ongoing back and forth between cities and the legislature over Trevor Lee and Dan McKay's pride flag ban. With Salt Lake City overruling, well, not really overruling that ban, they can, it's state law, but finding a loophole and creating some Salt Lake City specific pride flags to hang at City Hall in Salt Lake City ahead of Pride Day weekend, last weekend. Trevor Lee and Dan McKay, the sponsors of the pride flag ban, were just livid, but there wasn't a thing they could do. The city had found a legal loophole. They have good attorneys, apparently. And the governor was asked to weigh in on all of this yesterday, and what he said has both the left and the right coming down on him so hard today. Everyone's mad at Governor Cox, but we'll talk about what he said specifically. So some highlights from Governor Cox's monthly news conference to get to here. The first one is kind of going back a little bit onto something that you probably, like me, have already forgotten about because it was a few weeks ago, and we have the memories of goldfish now, thanks to the internet and social media. But there was a successful signature gathering drive for a referendum here in Utah. And we know that, right? That they were successful. Firefighters, cops, and teachers, labor workers, and more. They were successful at gathering enough signatures in enough counties in Utah to get on the ballot a referendum to repeal a law passed during the legislative session that bans public unions like firefighters unions, teachers unions, the law enforcement union, labor unions, and more from collectively bargaining with the government for wage and salary packages. The controversy around the bill itself, of course, was that it was vindictive. The teachers union sued successfully last year the legislature and won. Supreme Court agreed with a lower court that the legislature violated the state constitution in crafting a ballot initiative to change, basically some education funding things through constitutional amendment, and that they had notified the public in enough time in advance, and then also that the language the legislature wrote themselves for the ballot for the constitutional amendment, the language that would appear on the ballot asking voters if they wanted to amend the Constitution was deceptive. The courts agreed, and then the legislature, still smarting over that loss and very petty, they passed this bill to punish teachers' unions. What they didn't expect was for the firefighters, the law enforcement union, and the labor unions to join with the teachers' union in fighting back. And they fought back successfully. They collected enough signatures. This will be on the ballot. The question is now, is that where they collected signatures this year, technically the rules say it should be on the ballot this fall. But that means that it would happen in a municipal election year, which means the state technically would have to call this a special election. And the governor has until June 21st to decide on that. So first up, from highlights from yesterday's monthly news conference with Governor Cox responding to that very question. What does he plan to do as far as a special election this fall
on that referendum to repeal the collective bargaining ban.
Governor, you have a deadline coming up of June 21st on the HB 267 referendum, the collective bargaining referendum. That would be the day you need to declare whether or not you're going to call a special election. What's your thought process on that? Will there be a special election in November?
Yeah, we'll continue to look at that. Again, the referendum process has moved forward. We have the option of being able to call an election this year or next year. And so that's something we've certainly looked at. We'll continue to look at it. We're having conversations with lots of people, having conversations with the legislature, having conversations with county clerks who have to oversee those elections, and just trying to see what's best. Is it best to get it on now and get it over with? Is that easier? Is it too much pressure on places that won't be having an election? Even though there is an election in November, not every municipality will have one. If you don't have people sign up to run for mayor, if it's an uncontested election, they don't have to hold the election. So what would that add? What kind of a burden would that add? What would the cost be? We're looking at all of those, and we'll make a decision as we get closer to that deadline.
The table.
It's not off the table. We could have a special election this year. It's still possible.
Back on the situation.
The question there is specifically oriented towards a rumor going around, started by a state senator, that they were actually going to punt this until 2025 in the hopes that basically voters would forget before it actually came up. I think that was just a rumor. I really don't think they would be that brazen, but I don't know. The legislature has surprised me a few times over the last little while, but I don't think so. I really do think that was just a rumor that went around. The governor kind of laying that to rest, saying, no, the special session this fall is definitely still on the table. We just need to talk to county clerks and others and see exactly how to go about this, because again, it's a municipal election year, and some cities don't have municipal elections happening due to lack of candidates, other things like that. So we'll see on that one. The next question the governor took was on immigration. Specifically, he was asked about comments Governor Herbert made earlier today. Former Governor Gary Herbert said if he were Gavin Newsom, he would be, quote, quite angry right now, after President Trump ordered National Guard and Marine troops into California, despite the governor not requesting it, and despite the governor and the legislature and local law enforcement in California, Governor Herbert said, asking them not to do it. He said, if I were governor of a state and they did this to me, I would be very upset. Governor Cox was asked about that today.
What do you make of this argument that California tends to make about states' rights, that this is stepping on state authority, that they don't want it, they don't need it, and yet the president is doing this?
Well, again, the Constitution clearly states that the federal government does have the ability, and federal law also states that the federal government has the ability to call up National Guard troops from the states. And as a states' rights person, I don't love that. I wish the Constitution didn't say that, and I wish that the federal law doesn't say that, but it does say that. And so that always is an option. Now, Ben, as part of your question, you said the argument that they don't need it, and I think that's where the real argument is happening. I think they probably do need it. Again, I've seen the videos. The damage that is being done is unconscionable, and we can't have that in a civil society. It can't. Look, I want Utah to be the best place in the United States to protest. I want to do everything possible to protect the right of those who want to protest. We had protests on Saturday, this past Saturday or Sunday. I guess the protests were on Sunday. We're going to have apparently additional protests potentially on this Saturday, and I think that's wonderful. That's also part of the Constitution, the ability for people to show up and express their views and do so publicly, the right to assemble. I also want Utah to be the worst possible place to riot. The minute you start to spray paint the Capitol, the second you start, you implement violence or property destruction, we will arrest you and we will hold you accountable, and we will break up the disturbance that is happening. We are going to be over-prepared, and just a word of warning to anybody who is thinking about any type of violence or chaos or property damage or vandalism. It will not happen here, and you will be held accountable. So if you want to protest, this is a great place to protest. If you want to do that, go to California.
If you'd like to read former Governor Gary Herbert's comments that triggered that exchange during the monthly news conference, you can do so via the Utah Valley University Institute that Governor Gary Herbert has launched, where they've posted his comments. And again, former Governor Gary Herbert kind of triggering this conversation by this morning saying if he were Gavin Newsom, he would be, quote, very upset that the federal government is ignoring him and sending in the troops, despite the fact that local law enforcement and lawmakers and the governor in California are saying they've got it under control. He said, Governor Herbert said he felt it was wrong for the president to ignore the governor, and he would be, quote, very upset were he in Gavin Newsom's shoes. Governor Cox saying he disagrees, I guess, with his predecessor and mentor. Coming up on the other side, what Governor Cox said yesterday that has today on social media both the left and the right hating him oh so bad. Comment on the recently passed pride flag ban law sponsored by Trevor Lee, a Republican from Davis County, and Senator Dan McKay, a Republican from Riverton, Utah, that banned pride flags in classrooms and government buildings here in Utah. Salt Lake City then passed a resolution kind of finding a loophole in this. They made city-specific pride flags and hung them up. A loophole they'd found in the law. The state couldn't stop them, and they did it to say, we're pushing back on this. We want to be an inclusive city and send that message with the flags we display alongside flags we display from all around the state. And the sponsors of the bill, Lee and McKay, are very upset about it. The city has moved on, but the flags remain at City Hall. And it's been the hot button issue on social media for weeks now. Governor Cox was asked for his opinion on this, and he managed to make everybody mad. What he said right after this.
Tired of that patch of dirt you call a patio? Ready to impress the neighbors and your in-laws? Introducing you, the Weekend Warrior. Thanks to Castelite Tile and Masonry. With easy-to-install outdoor pavers and expert advice, you'll go from, I have no idea what I'm doing, to check out my backyard oasis in no time. They'll teach you how to do it right without the head-scratching or YouTube rabbit holes. Castelite, go where the pros go. And now, where you go too.
Essie Needham Jewelers has been helping couples celebrate their anniversaries for more than a century. When you present her a piece of diamond jewelry in an Essie Needham box, it says you're committed to taking care of her forever. We absolutely stand behind our jewelry, our prices, and our service. We always have and always will. This anniversary, give the gift of diamond jewelry. A diamond from Essie Needham Jewelers says that you plan on being there for the rest of her life, just like we will be. Essie Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
One day, one massive parking lot, thousands of deals. It's Cache Valley's biggest garage sale, June 21st, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Eccles Ice Center parking lot. It's the ultimate community yard sale with bargains galore and a kids' fun zone, food vendors, and thousands of deals to be made. Bring your stuff or bring your wallet. Whether you're a family looking to declutter or a business ready to unload inventory, there's a space for you. First come, first served. For details, sign up, and payment information, go to CacheValleyGarageSale.com. It's Cache Valley's biggest garage sale, June 21st at the Eccles Ice Center.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
We come on this loop, John B. My grandfather.
Welcome back to KVA News for the People. Highlights now here on the show from Governor Cox's monthly news conference yesterday. You can watch the entire thing about an hour long via the link on our Facebook page. But these were the main points of the discussion. And a final one to get to here. I don't know if this is funny or actually really good public policy analysis expressed in the way that most of us would in our personal lives, but don't expect the governor to. Either way, it was an exchange that happened yesterday that has today on social media both the left and the right hating Governor Cox's very being. Now, I think one of the laziest things people say ever is if both sides are mad at you, you must be doing something right. Well, no, sometimes both sides are mad at you because what you said was that bad. But there are cases, I think, when everybody's upset, maybe you did have a point and everyone's having an emotional reaction to what you said. So what did the governor say? A little background. During the legislative session, Trevor Lee in the House and Dan McKay in the Senate, two Republicans, sponsored a bill that banned pride flags in government buildings and classrooms here in Utah. That bill was expected to die in committee, and then surprising even, I think, most of the other Republicans in the House and the Senate, it did not, at which point some have confessed they were afraid to vote against it, even though they thought it was a bad idea and would likely end up in a lawsuit the state would lose. The bill passed. The governor didn't sign it, but he didn't veto it, meaning it goes into effect without his support. Shortly after that, just ahead of the June Pride celebration kickoff in Salt Lake City Council and Mayor Aaron Mendenhall had a discussion and a vote in which they approved official flags for the city, something every city does. But they approved pride flags for the city, kind of just to thumb their nose a little bit, but also recognizing that it was Pride Day coming up. Mayor Aaron Mendenhall said, "We want to send the message that Salt Lake City disagrees with the legislature and the governor on this one, and that we want to be inclusive and default to love and inclusion, not hate and fear." Implying that the bill sponsored by Trevor Lee and Dan McKay was based on bigotry. The bill itself, again, is still in place without the governor's signature. The flags in Salt Lake City are still in place because they found a legal loophole. Although Trevor Lee has said, "We'll be fixing this." His exact quote on Twitter was, "Just you wait," because we only elect the mature here in Utah. And the issue then kind of went away a bit until yesterday, when Robert Gehrke of the Salt Lake Tribune, for no timely reason really, brought this up and said, "What did you think about all this as it played out?"
Salt Lake City had a ceremony to raise one of their alternative flags, this one for Juneteenth. Do you support what Salt Lake City's done to try to get around this ban on pride flags? You had said when you signed the bill that you didn't like that it affected government buildings.
Yeah, and I don't support it. I mean, they're dumb flags, and it was a dumb bill.
Wait, yeah. They are dumb. Yeah. Pride flags are dumb. Salt Lake City's flags are dumb.
Yeah, Salt Lake City's flags.
Okay,
it's ridiculous. I mean, I feel bad for the Japanese Americans. I feel bad for the Polynesian Americans. I mean, who are we leaving out here, Robert? I mean, I mean, I'm sure they feel great that they got around this dumb law, and they did it with dumb flags.
What do you think should be done?
The whole thing's dumb.
Well, what do you think should be done?
Well, I already said what I thought should be done. We should raise the American flag, and let's unify around that. It's a great flag, represents everyone, and the legislature doesn't need to be in everybody's business all the time. Again, it's it's the dumbest of all. We're living in the dumbest timeline right now. That's all I can say.
I dare you to disagree with the governor on this one. Needless to say, everyone's hating on him for this today. From the left, so some of the comments that I collected off social media during my lunch break today, knowing I would want to include them in the show. Here's one from the left that I kind of think sums up how he's getting attacked for the left on this one. This is a tweet from a pretty well-known podcaster in Utah politics, left-leaning podcaster, who wrote on Twitter this morning, "You know who doesn't think the Salt Lake City flags are dumb, Governor, are the members of the LGBTQ community that feel targeted and excluded by the bigotry of Representative Trevor Lee and Senator Dan McKay, and your cowardice in allowing this bill to go into effect without your signature, but without a veto. despite not liking the bill. So that's where kind of summarizes the attack from the left. On the right, he's getting attacked today, Governor Cox. Here's a quote from his former gubernatorial opponent, Phil Lyman, who said, "Stop being a coward. Choose a side." There is another comment from a former state lawmaker who said, "I disagree with the governor's characterization that this was a dumb bill. It is important to keep this indoctrination out of Utah schools, and that's exactly what Senator Dan McKay's bill did and why I voted for it." So basically, both sides are coming after the governor today because the governor said, again, we're living in the dumbest timeline. This was a dumb bill, and those are dumb flags. But I kind of think he has a point. So the bill itself to ban pride flags from the classroom is basically built on this idea that inclusive flags like a pride flag or a Juneteenth flag, or as is popular on the East Coast in some communities, Italian flags, because there are a large number of Italian families in the area. This is all done by teachers. If you ask any teacher who does it, to say to the people in the classroom who might feel other, who might feel different and excluded because they're not a part of the majority of either from a racial perspective or a general perspective of how you grew up. One example that I thought of with pride flags was a young girl who was in a documentary that was made once about classrooms in California. Documentary, this young girl said she was excited that her first grade teacher had a pride flag up because she has two dads, and she felt that was a welcoming in the classroom. She was a part of that classroom because she saw that pride flag and knew that teacher would not make fun of her or condemn her in any way for having two dads. And that spoke to me. That made me feel for that little girl. And I thought, okay, you know what? Who cares? Put a pride flag in the classroom. And that's still where I sit today. I don't know why anyone would get so worked up about this, but the reason is, as explained by Senator Dan McKay himself, he believes that a pride flag in a classroom is elevating one minority over another. Okay, fine. I don't get that, but that's where he's coming from. The governor, obviously, as he said, thought the whole thing was just dumb. The bill banning the pride flags was dumb, he said. The alternative pride flags that Salt Lake City came up with to get around the ban was dumb, and that everyone should just go on about their business. While I don't agree with the governor that we should ban all flags but the American flag, because that also sounds dumb to me, because, again, who cares? I really don't care. I would get it if someone was putting, in fact, to be honest with you, I'd be more inclined to get on board with someone putting a Confederate flag up in a classroom because they were traitors who lost the war. We shouldn't celebrate losers. But even then, I would probably be hard-pressed to get that upset about it, especially if it was done as part of some historical presentation or discussion. Sometimes I wonder if we wouldn't all be better off if everyone just calmed down. And I mean everyone. The state lawmakers who passed this, to quote the governor, dumb bill, and those who, to get around it, invented and designed brand new pride flags to get around the law. I get it. They were sending a message, and I kind of give it to them for that. They got the best of the legislature, and that's kind of funny. But I'm with the governor. Dumb law. Dumb flags. Everybody go get a life. We'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this.
Well, thank you, Jason. The Cache County Republicans will be observing Flag Day coming up Saturday morning, June 14th, at the Cache County Historic Courthouse. Now, that patriotic ceremony is slated from 8 to 9 a.m. just before the Cache Gardeners Market. Now, the local event will commemorate the adoption of the American flag by the Continental Congress in 1777 with a flag-raising ceremony and inspirational salute by local veterans, along with a 21-gun salute and appropriate remarks by Utah Representative Mike Peterson. Now, renowned vocalist Anna Romney will also be performing at the brief ceremony. Now, while Flag Day is widely observed as a day to celebrate celebrate the adoption of the flag across the country. It's not technically a federally recognized holiday. And government buildings in Provo were evacuated yesterday morning after police were called out to investigate active bomb threats. Now, Utah County government officials said that there were bomb threats at 2 Provo buildings yesterday morning. The administration building and the historic courthouse were targeted in the threat. And as they were responding to those threats, they also learned of similar calls threatening the credit union and the library as well. Now, officials with the Provo Police Department confirmed that people in West Valley also received similar bomb threats. Provo Police said that the threats came in the form of phone calls that gave a countdown of 34 minutes for when a bomb would supposedly go off. Now, the caller said that if the bomb did not go off, they would then start shooting employees. Now, after more than 200 employees were evacuated and the police investigated the scene, they determined that the threat was not credible, and they cleared the employees to return to work. Now, Provo detectives have contacted federal partners and are working in tandem now on an investigation into the source of those calls. And finally, a 45-year-old New Jersey man is headed to prison for sexting with a Logan girl last spring. Paul T. Carroll was originally booked into the Cache County Jail back in December, 2 months after a warrant was issued for his arrest. Now, according to court records, Carroll was sentenced last week in Logan's First District Court after he had previously pleaded guilty to criminal solicitation of a minor, amended to a second-degree felony. Now, according to prosecutors, Logan City police officers were called to investigate a child sex abuse report back in April of 2024. The victim's mother had provided officers with several laptop computers that the girl had used to communicate with the suspect online. Now, the chats through an app called Say Hi were sexual in nature and included the man sending the girl inappropriate pictures and videos of himself. Now, police were able to track the IP address and the ID in the app to Carroll's home in New Jersey, where a warrant was served and he was taken into custody. Now, police found several of the items that were seen in the background of the photos and videos that the victim had been sent. They also noted that prosecutors had determined that Carroll was a registered sex offender who was previously convicted of attempting to meet up with a child. Now, during last week's sentencing, Judge Brian Cannell ordered Carroll to serve an indeterminate term of at least 1 year and not more than 20 years in the Utah State Correctional Facility. And looking at that weather forecast, it's going to remain hot for us this afternoon, as temperatures have been in the high 80s today. Tonight we're going to drop into the high 50s, and then tomorrow more sunny weather with temperatures returning into the high 80s, and it looks like we could see 90s again coming for Friday and Father's Day weekend. And they're wanting to help keep your home cool through insulating your home. Cardall's Insulation. They can take care of insulating your home, your garage, your attic, anywhere. Just call them today at 755-5012 for Cardall's Insulation. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headlines.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. Demonstrators against President Trump's immigration crackdown expected to rally for a 6th evening in Los Angeles. The tone of the demonstration seeming much calmer today. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna urging protesters to make their voices heard peacefully.
We will facilitate all peaceful First Amendment activity.
As opposed to last night when LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell says 3 individuals were arrested and charged with attacks against officers.
These were deliberate attacks. Acts that injured officers who were simply doing their job out there to protect the public.
U.S. and Chinese officials say they've reached a tentative agreement to get trade relations back on track. Details scarce, but President Trump said China will make it easier for the U.S. to get much-needed magnets and rare earth minerals. In Gaza, the IDF says it recovered 2 bodies of deceased hostages in Khan Yunis, a city in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. This is ABC News.
Do you have a nasty weed problem? We have the right person for you. Sir, you work for Logan Extermination, don't you? Can you help these folks get rid of pesky dandelions?
Of course I can help. I am the Terminator. I will terminate those little yellow devils in your yard. Call me at Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Terminate your weeds and green up your lawn for only $45, based on maximum 5,000 square feet.
Finding comfort outdoors by upgrading your landscape is easy with the creative touch of Canyon Landscaping. Imagine beautifully designed planting beds, an outdoor patio with landscape lighting to help you relax, entertain, and enjoy your home. Your project designed around your lifestyle and professionally installed, on budget and on time. See their work at canyonlandscaping.com or call 752-3838 to get started right away. Canyon Landscaping. Look for the leaf.
In our rural communities, EMS volunteers stand ready to help every day. Volunteers are ordinary people performing extraordinary acts. Many of these heroes lack access to essential health insurance for themselves and their families. It's time to give back. Utah has a new program that offers no-cost medical, dental, life, and long-term disability insurance to our rural EMS volunteers. Families may also be eligible for low-cost options. Become a licensed EMT, AEMT, or paramedic, and you and your family may be eligible. Visit utahcounties.org to learn more. That's utahcounties.org.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Is Steph Willis there?
This is she.
A group of people reached out to us. They were telling us about the work that you do there at the Terrace Grove Assisted Living Center. And they said, we as residents are most grateful for the time and attention that Steph gives to us.
So kind.
I've got a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs just for being a hero in our community.
That is so kind. I appreciate that. Wow.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up, argument over Utah legislature's recent push to kind of retool higher education a bit. And with Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz, basically saying we need to be more focused on graduating students from both college, technical schools, and even high schools who are ready to go into the job markets that are hiring the most. Well, some policymakers, including a couple of right-leaning think tanks, have spoken up and analyzed Utah's approach, and they wrote a letter published in the Standard Examiner yesterday, basically titled, "Turning Schools into Factories Isn't the Solution for Utah." We'll talk about the argument they're making and how lawmakers behind this effort to retool higher education here in Utah a bit are responding to their argument. So that's coming up in just a bit. Before we get to that, though, one final portion of Governor Cox's monthly news conference, and this is one that people are probably paying the most attention to. We talked about it here on the show, but there is there's a ongoing effort. So let's start from the first. So during the legislative session, the legislature took the first real concrete steps towards nuclear energy here in Utah. Despite years and decades of lip service and exploratory task forces and bad ideas like building one on the Green River, horrible idea, and then with cities at one point investing in these small modular reactor R&D projects, like one outside of Idaho Falls that unfortunately went belly up, kind of catching Logan City and all of that mess. No fault of Logan City's and no fault of the technology. This appeared to be kind of a whoever was running that project was not good at it. Mismanagement killed that project, and unfortunately everything kind of stalled out after that. Well, a different company is back with similar technology, small modular reactors. These are reactors where you could have 3 or 4 of them. There's one that I don't know if it's the same company, but it's the same technology outside of Kemmerer right now in the R&D phases. It's operational and built, but they basically can't run it at full capacity or connect it to the grid until it's fully tested. But they're testing it now. And then the legislature this year actually passed some legislation funding this a bit, saying, okay, let's, here's some funding for an exploratory committee. What do we need to do? And then they signed some agreements with these startup companies that are promising to develop this technology for Utah in exchange for Utah letting them be the testing ground, basically. And Governor Cox said we need to do this. I've made the argument many times here on the show that if you are concerned about climate change, you need to embrace nuclear energy. I don't think anything will get us to where we need to be to save the planet faster than nuclear energy.
But I get it, too. It has a stigma. An oopsie at a coal-fired plant is one thing compared to an oopsie at a nuclear reactor, which tends to be Chernobyl. So, I get it. There's hesitancy on this front. But these small modular reactors are very different. They run differently. They require far less water. It is new technology, and it is really long-term untested. So there's risks, but the state has signed some agreements to go down this road, and I think it's a really good thing. That came up during the governor's monthly news conference yesterday, but hats off to Fox 13's Ben Winslow, who finally said what everyone was thinking, which is, look, a lot of talk, a lot of details about the agreements that have been signed, blah, blah, blah. What exactly is the plan here? How big does the state plan to go, and how soon on nuclear energy?
Clearly, there's a lot of memorandums of understanding being signed, but we don't have a sense, and I want to ask you, how big are you planning to go with this? Because are we talking 1 plant, 2 plant, 3 plants, 8 plants? Yeah. And how much is this going to cost, and how long is it going to take?
Well, hopefully dozens of plants. Again, small modular reactors are modular by definition, and they stack, they build. That's the idea behind it. We've got to change our mindset of The Simpsons, the giant nuclear plant where Homer works. That's not what we're talking about. These are small modular reactors. They're safe. We've got to change the regulatory scheme to allow that to work. There will be lots of different companies that are trying to get into this space. We had a memorandum of understanding that was signed a few weeks ago. We had another one that was signed this week. Yesterday. Yep, that's right. That will allow another company to come in. We're going to be working with all of these companies. We want to find the best technology. We're not betting on any one technology or any one company. That doesn't make sense. We're betting on the idea that there is going to be a nuclear renaissance, and it's not just an idea. This is not a crapshoot. It's happening. It's happening in China right now, where they have dozens and dozens of these plants that are already under construction and going online soon, and 160 more that are in some form of proposal. We're falling behind the rest of the world when it comes to nuclear technology, and we believe that Utah can be a leader in this space. And so we want to go big. The market will decide how big that is. Government's not going to decide that, but we're going to present opportunities, and as we always have been, a leader in this mentality that we can still build. We can still make things happen here. Now, in nuclear, we can't do it without the federal government, without the regulatory agency. But I'm grateful again with Trump's orders and there's bipartisan legislation that where both sides agree. Republicans. This is one of the rare things where Republicans and Democrats actually really do agree that we need to make way for these small modular reactors. We need to construct them quicker, and we need to be able to start building again.
How much is this going to cost, though? Well,
so right now it's not going to cost us anything. We have this laboratory space. We've had it for years. We're just providing space for these companies to come in and run their new technology there to see if it actually works. And so that's not going to cost us anything. The hope is that it will save us down the road. Now, we do have money set aside for siting because that is going to take some money, and there will be state involvement. I think I got $10 million from the legislature to work on that. So that's a start. It's going to take more, but it'll pay off in the long run once we get those regulatory approvals.
Is it worth the state's commitment to this to build data centers, essentially to power data centers? I mean, is that something that we as Utahns should feel good about?
Yeah, I think so.
In terms of the water use, and if we're going to put this kind of investment into it for that kind of limited purpose.
Look, I'm fairly agnostic when it comes to data centers. Data centers are great in that they create a lot of investment in the state. They don't create a lot of jobs. So I'm not just a huge proponent of AI data centers, but they're happening, and they're happening all across the country, and they're coming. And even if we don't put them here, they're going to draw power from all over the country. So even if we didn't have a single data center here, we would still need to significantly increase our power production here. If we're going to significantly increase increase our power production, we might as well put them here. And the reason I say that, Robert, the thing that worries me most is the water piece. But the new AI data centers, in fact, we have one here in Utah, they don't use much water at all. In fact, they've come up with new systems where the water, there's just one influx of water and then it stays in the system. They're not drawing in any new water. They have the ability to cool that water. But to do that, it takes more power. So that's the give and take. So you need more power, but less water. And that's what we're really focused on. And so, yes, I do anticipate that there will be huge data centers. We know that. Those agreements are already happening. The market is driving that. Utah is a great place for data centers because of our elevation, our location on the grid. You need data centers close to the power sources. We just passed a law that allows us to put power sources closer to where these data centers are going to be built. They can be built out of our bad air sheds and in our better air sheds. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here, which is good for Utah long term. And we're going to need the power anyway, so let's build it and let's invite them here.
Governor, back to
that was probably the most detailed and extensive conversation about nuclear energy, even outside of the debates in the legislative session this year, that I think we've heard yet. So for those who had, like me, the question, and like Ben Winslow, Fox 13 there, okay, what are we talking about here? How big, how many reactors, and how soon, and how expensive? The governor kind of just laying it all out there. The short and sweet of it, again, for those who maybe missed it, you can watch the entire monthly news conference via the link on our Facebook page. But the governor saying, not sure about the price tag because this is all still in development, the technology itself, the reactors themselves, though they're using what is now kind of 10-year-old technology. They have to build them. And so that's going to take a bit. And we are agreeing only to the R&D side. If it doesn't work, we're not on the hook for anything. No taxpayer costs at all other than what we spend on helping them with the R&D. If it works, as far as how many, the governor said, I'd like to see dozens of them. But that will be up to local communities to decide if they want to buy in, quote unquote, and be a part of the program and put a modular reactor somewhere near them. That will be up to the communities and the residents of those communities themselves to decide. The state won't mandate locations or anything like that. And then finally, the governor finally answering the question of, what this means for Utah, and the big question of inviting all these data centers in that use, especially the AI data center they're talking about, that use more electricity than the entire population of the state does on a daily basis. The governor saying, that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of industry. And the only way to sustain that is with nuclear energy. So if we're going to do this, let's do this, and let's do it sooner rather than later. So no specifics on the time frame or the cost, other than the governor kind of laying out that the state and taxpayers won't be on the hook for much if it goes south, and that they can go elsewhere and start over. As far as the timeline, the governor saying, he can't predict anything. It's in R&D, but as soon as possible, if they're right about having this done in 5 years, he wants to make sure the state is ready to actually launch and get going with nuclear energy in 5 years. And as far as the cost goes, if the R&D goes well, the Utah taxpayers will make their money back within that first year. And I don't think that's a real stretch in any part to say. It's not like there's a shortage for electricity on the market, right? If we're overproducing, we'll be able to sell it. So there you have it. The most detail we've gotten so far from any elected official here in Utah on Utah's nuclear energy plan. And they're serious about it this time. We'll be back with more of KVN News for the People right after this.
Here's Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Warmer temperatures have both weeds and grass competing for space in your yard. Dandelions, thistle, clover, morning glory will all be kept under better control when you have us applying pre-emergence and weed control. At the same time, we can feed your grass to make sure it wins the battle and keep it lush and growing all season long. Regular visits from the lawn doctor will help your lawn be healthier and pest-free.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, at 753-LAWN. Follow them on Facebook or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com.
It's our 100th year of summer getaways at Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac. From the mountains to Moab, we'll get you there because every great summer starts with the right ride. Right now, take up to $2,500 off the all-new Terrain. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at murdochchevroletlogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 6/30/2025.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, Feel the Love is more than just heating and cooling. It means giving back. 5 complete HVAC systems will be donated to a deserving person or family. Feel the love and nominate that person or family in need at mtnvalleyhvac.com. Nominate prior to September 1st, 2025. See website for all details.
Wrapping up today's show with this, and I've posted a link to it if you want to read it in full on our Facebook page. But recently, during the legislative session this year, lawmakers passed House Bill 265 and House Bill 260, in short, demanding that higher education institutions reallocate funding and resources toward, quote, high-demand certificate programs, meaning they want colleges and technical schools to churn out students who are more ready to go into the markets that are hiring the fastest right now. And in exchange, they want them to slash or completely eliminate funding for so-called low-value courses. The authors of the letter write that, one, and I completely agree with this, no one is less suited to determine what is high value or low value than Utah lawmakers, most of them who work in real estate or are attorneys. That said, their legislation did task that decision with higher ed professionals, so fair enough. But still, good point. But the writers are from, this is what's interesting, the Northern Utah Academy of Math, Engineer, and Science Professionals. These are people who work as paid engineers. They have they got educations, they got degrees, and they work professionally as engineers. And they have an example to provide. And I had completely forgotten about this myself, but I was of this era. In the early to mid-90s, there was this huge push, the authors remind us, to get everyone into an engineering degree because that was the industry hiring the fastest. The problem was, the authors write, states were successful. And within a year, they had flooded every engineering school in the nation, meaning that within 4 to 5 years that these students graduated, engineering jobs were no longer the fastest going or fastest hiring jobs in the country. We basically set these students up for yanking the rug out from underneath them 5 years later. How about we step back and let education professionals who know what they're doing do what they do? It's an interesting perspective. I encourage you to read it, and we'll see if lawmakers